This is the smoked debrief. Light up, lock in, and let's get to it.
We are rolling, sir.
I generally stay away from cigars in tubes because they're usually the kind of cigars you get at a liquor store. So I don't know where Jim came up with this Miami El Mago Triumphant, which I think, in my poor Spanish knowledge, means the triumphant magician.
I got these. These were suggested by Matt Finney, my buddy Matt Finney.
Matt Finney, the world traveler.
the
Matt,
world traveler.
this is definitely for you. I miss you, man.
So we're gonna. And I've had one of these before, and it was really good.
You have.
Yes. So it's been a while though.
It has. You know how much I believed in Jim? Is I think, right here. I think I've had one in this bag for like 5 years.
Did I give you that?
Well, I wouldn't have got it anywhere else from
I
you.
noticed you got the dragon in there.
So, the dragon, yeah, Jim, yeah, because Jim likes light blue. It's his favorite color,
Yes.
and this is my great humidor, as you can see. He also got me this amazing cigar, which is the Muestra de Saca. I think Steve Saka makes these. Is that correct? Is that the guy's name? Diademas Deluxe.
Packaging.
6.25 by 60. Yeah, the only reason Jim bought this is because it's light blue and it's pretty, and who knows? Do you have one of these?
I have had one of those.
Do you have another one?
Uh-huh.
Well, we'll have to
Yes,
smoke
we'll
one together.
Pop one of those open.
Let's see if I can get this out
That's
of
the
the container.
one that I said that.
And let me tell you,
Didn't live
Jim
up
is
to
a
that.
packaging whore.
Yeah.
If you want to sell Jim a cigar, give it some nice packaging, and he is for sure going to buy it. It has a beautiful band. It looks kind of Connecticut.
Is it?
I don't know.
What was
You obviously didn't look it up and
What was our
have any information on
I
it.
did look it up, but you were fumigating your knowledge of the Hispanic language. The cunning linguist.
The cunning linguist like James Bond, who is now owned by Amazon. I can only expect the worst and hope for the best.
Oh, this is taking me. All it's taking me is swag. Come on, tell me about the cigar, people. There we go.
The band shows a lovely view of a factory with rows of tobacco leaves in the foreground, tobacco plants. It's quite a beautiful band, actually.
It is nice. I like the way it's embossed.
Well, that's a
Oh,
pretty
cool.
big word for a audio installer, embossed.
Thank you.
Even bigger for a coffee shop owner.
Yeah.
So what does it say about it?
Let's see. It is a Nicaraguan.
Really?
Mild strength. This is a 52 by 6. And that's pretty much all they tell you about it.
Well, I guess we'll have to burn it and see what happens.
Let's do it. Oh, wait a minute. Triumphante. What? How you say that? Whatever.
The triumphant
The
magician.
magician. Connecticut's. So it is a Connecticut.
I thought
I
so.
had no idea. And I believe you can get these at Havana Fields
Which is located where?
in Greensboro, North Kakalaki. And it's an amazing joint. If you've never been in there, whether you smoke cigars or not, you got to go in there and check that place out because it is pretty awesome.
So, is the car stereo aftermarket world dead? It seems to me with all of the stereo systems and stuff that goes on now in new cars, I mean, did it kill the car stereo world?
Well, for maybe new cars, I think there's, because everybody's going with the CarPlay. Most cars have CarPlay in it. When I was still doing stuff, at that time, the only people who had CarPlay were like BMW.
Range Rover.
No, actually, they didn't have it either.
No, I know. I was just making a point that I have a Range Rover now. And you're right, it doesn't have CarPlay. But my freaking phone hooked up to it.
Yeah,
You hooked it up to it.
I'm just murdering this damn cigar.
Jim, you murder every cigar you lay. See how mine is so perfectly lit?
Yeah.
Yours looks like a charcoal burn-in that they have at the steakhouse.
And so what we did was we had interfaces that would allow us, Mercedes, depending on which model it was, you could integrate into Mercedes. They had a fiber optic system where everything was connected by one fiber optic, and you could integrate a cable into that. And sometimes you would lose the CD changer. Other times you didn't. It just treated it as another source. You just never really knew. So we were doing a lot of that, and it was as the stereo, the head unit up front got more integrated into the dash and showing air conditioning, your air conditioning controls and stuff were all integrated onto the same screen as your radio stations and stuff. Then you got to replace that with something that would give you better sound but still maintain that readout for your air conditioning.
And that was hard, huh?
It was either so expensive for the adapters to allow you to do it that it wasn't worth it, or you just couldn't do it. And so then it got to where we would interface from that head unit. We would take the outputs from that head unit and amplify it from there, add amps and replace speakers from there. And most of the time it worked out as long as you used a decent component that took that crappy signal out of that factory head unit and allowed you to tailor it and send it to the proper amplifier for the proper speaker and all that. It was great. But like Honda's, you would learn over time how you could deal with something like we would add amplifiers to some Hondas, Accords, and some of the Acuras. They had little microphones in the car for noise canceling. So when you would hook up an aftermarket amplifier to the Honda's system, those little microphones would activate and it would cause feedback through the stereo because the factory system was trying to cancel.
Right, it was fighting against each other.
So once you realize that, then of course that made the installation a little more expensive. But it usually worked out pretty good as long as we knew what we were getting into. I tried putting, you're talking about the Range Rover. I tried putting a remote start on a 2012 Range Rover. It was a supercharged one. I think it was just the Rover HSE or something.
So one above the HSE because it has a supercharged engine in it, like 300 horsepower or something. Yeah,
It was like, I think this is probably a $300,000 car. It was one of my clients that I'm always doing stuff for, and he wanted a remote start. This was push button. No big deal. So, but nobody had ever done one. Nobody had put a remote start on that model Range Rover. So there was no information. So I just tell my client, I'm going to need the car. You leave it with me for a couple days. And they're like, okay. So we got in and started tearing it down. we got to where it would remote start. We could get the push to start to work. It actually worked pretty good because we were able to use low voltage. And all I had to do, I think it was like $60 for a replacement push to start button, because I bought that first and then used it to test because I didn't want to mess up anything.
Outside of the vehicle, you did it outside of the vehicle.
So we're testing, and we got pretty much everything. We had our brake sensor, all that stuff, tack, everything ready to go. And it still would not work because you have to push the brake to hit the start button so the vehicle will start. And it wasn't an electrical connection from the brake on that.
It was a
model
mechanical connection.
It was hydraulic, and it was pressure sensitive, and it went into the ABS module. So all this, the vehicle does all these checks within a second of you trying to start it, and for us to figure out and defeat it. But that was it. And I was like, yeah, I'm not breaking into that ABS thing and try to figure this out. And I think like maybe 3 years later, Range Rover probably put remote start on it. But now, I think I couldn't do it because I'm just not smart enough. But I think if I had a stereo shop now, I would hire some little computer geek who likes I think it's Linux or whatever the language that the car's computers use now. You could probably have somebody that could hack into those and
Hack's an ugly word, Jim.
Huh?
Hack's an ugly word, Jim.
I don't care. But they could hack into it and maybe get the unit to work. Just tell the car, hey, it's okay to let this module hook up this way. And there were a few cars that already had like remote start and stuff on them, but hadn't been activated.
Really?
And you could go in and activate and the components were already there. And there was a few times when it was you just had to go to the dealership and get the remote that had the button on it. And that was one, I can't remember what model that was. Maybe it was a Volkswagen or something.
So you took the car and you went and got the remote start for controller for $300, and you charged them like $2,000 for all the work you had to do, right, to manipulate
on some
it.
cars, yeah. Like the first, when Ford first came out with that immobilizer key,
yeah,
with the little chips in the key, that was probably 94, 95. Had a client bring in, he had just bought this Lincoln Navigator, and I started looking, and I'm talking to Viper, the company we sold their equipment. I'm talking to their tech guys, and they were like, we haven't had one of those yet, but let's see what we can figure out, because we can use the information too. So we started looking at everything, and we found out that we had to get a second antenna ring like they use in the ignition switch. This was 95. They didn't have push to start on that model. So I found one dealer in North Carolina that had that part, and it was he was in Yanceyville, North Carolina. Greg Lake Ford, I think that's the name of it. So we went, and his parts department just happened to be open on a Saturday because his client dropped it off on a Friday. And I go get that piece, and we had to relay the shit out of that thing, but we got it working. And in that time, it required a key that we had to leave in the vehicle in that spare ring off somewhere else. And
so it could talk to
when
it.
You would hit the remote start, it would activate the relay. It would bypass the switch on the steering column, and it would go to our ring. It would read it and then allow the ignition cycle to start. So, and it was that one was pretty intense. I think that was probably a 3 or 4 day install. And of course, we're documenting everything and talking to the Viper techs, and it worked.
What's the best way to build a great home system now? For a
System.
room, yeah, a home system for a room.
Man, I've been out of it so long. I mean, what I have,
Do you have a home stereo at your house?
not at the house. I've got, well, it's in storage. I actually Clips speakers came out with this. It's called the Fives, and it's 2 old school looking speakers, and they're Bluetooth, and you can hook a turntable up to them, and they sound phenomenal.
Really?
They sound awesome. I have them when I roast coffee. That's what I'm hooked into, and they sound great. Of course, that's not your true audiophile thing, but
Right.
Clips still makes great speakers, and there's a lot of their older speakers that are on eBay and Facebook Marketplace that are still like 17, 20 grand.
Still?
Yeah, it's crazy.
And those will hook in and function with the new stereo systems and everything?
You have to have some amplifier. You have to have
You have to have a
amplifier.
preamp and an amp?
I would like most people. They want that. They want to integrate their phone, listen to music, and then have
Right.
turntable. And I it's been a while, but Marantz and probably Sony, probably most of them have gotten back to where they put a phono input, so you can hook a turntable into it.
Right.
I've got an old Yamaha KA 1020 amp that I bought at the PX in Germany, and it's in storage. It still works, and my turntable, and in between moving, I've lost a foot off of the turntable. So I think I'm gonna see about having one 3D printed and put
There
it
you
back
go.
in there.
Remember when B&O first came out? How crazy their shit was,
Yeah,
Bang & Olufsen?
I used to when
So-
I was
they had turntables that were on their sides, and
it's insane because it was art. It was a work of art.
yeah, it's true.
They would hang on the wall. When I was in
Now, were they German?
yeah, German or Danish, something like that.
Something like that, right?
But when I was in 7th grade, no, 8th grade.
Be right,
We-
because
we
we,
were
we don't want
running-
those fact checkers out there in
we
the
were-
audience.
We were running. Yeah, I used to run around with these girls, and we ended up like summer. We're just running around swimming. You go to the house, you go get something to eat, whatever, and we go to this girl's house. It was a group of us. It wasn't a girlfriend or anything. It was just a bunch of guys and girls, and I'm in her family room, and I'm looking, and her damn dad has a B&O system, and I'm like, oh my god. So after that, I would look for excuses to go see that girl just so I could go in there and see that damn stereo. Oh my Lord, those were good times.
Those are, you're right. I think back to those days. That was like science fiction to us, the B&O. It was like,
Yeah, but I knew what it was because I was into
already?
audio and stuff. Yeah, I love that stuff. And I had a 6th grade. I had this little girlfriend, and she had told her mom like I was into stereo and stuff. And her mom, one day we were talking on the phone one evening, and her mom gets on the phone. Jimmy, we're going to go look for a cassette player, and what would you recommend? And I said, you want the best? And they were like, well, we want a good one. And I said, Lindsay Ward has a Nakamichi Dragon, and that's what you need to get. And all I knew was that Nakamichi Dragon was that badass cassette where it came out, flipped the cassette, and pulled it right back in.
Automatically.
Yeah. Have you ever seen it?
No.
Oh, it's so cool.
In the old
And they
days,
went and got
folks,
it.
music was on cassette tapes, and you had two sides. You'd play one side, and it would stop, and then you'd have to punch the button, pull it out, flip it over, put it back in, and then eventually they came, so there were auto returns, right? They would play the other side. But
that's the way this one did it. When it was time to reverse, it came out, flipped the cassette, and pulled it back in. Nakamichi Dragon.
Did they get it?
Oh, yeah, they got it. That was so much fun back
I think
then.
people have, because how simple everything is these days, people have really lost what true audiophile's about.
You remember the old Heath kits?
Yeah.
You could get those and you could build like your own little stereo and your speakers and stuff.
The days of tubes, man. Tubes!
Yeah. I used to build my, about sixth grade, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. It's when I really got into music. And I would take speakers and pull them apart and build a bigger cabinet and put them all in one cabinet. And it's just so damn fun, We had the little turntable, and then I got a boom box. Boom boxes were real big back in 80 to 84.
Say anything.
Yes.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Remember that scene?
Oh, this is a cool story. I have a lot of cool stories. When I was a freshman, my friend Kevin Keelan, he got a hardship license when he was 15. So because he had to commute. I don't know how they got because he had to commute from Merville to Knoxville, because his mom he went to school in Merville where his mom lived. His dad lived in Knoxville. And Kevin had this sweet ass Datsun 4x4 truck. So damn cool. Had the
You like my
roll
hash?
bars. Good Lord, son. Was it a bit dry?
No, it's perfect. Okay, just a little cigar break since this is a cigar show.
Yeah.
Great Connecticut. Too mild for me, but look at that ash. Excellent.
Will you look at
construction.
the ash on that son of a bitch?
Yeah, excellent construction, and it's really, really an excellent Connecticut cigar. Sorry, go ahead. Tell us
That's
about
all
Kevin
right.
Keeling.
No, I'm impressed. Here it goes. So he had this Nissan truck and wanted to get a stereo put in it. So we went to Lindsay Ward in Knoxville.
Was that a stereo store?
Stereo store. And we got in there, and the salesman, Kenny Thuggett is his name. He got Kevin hooked up, got all this stuff. Well, then I wanted a boombox. So Kevin came over and he started showing me all this, and finally I had to save up. So we finally, I think my mom ended up.
I feel like I'm in a John Cusack movie from the 80s right now.
I got some pretty good 80s stories. But we I think my mom gave me the money at Christmas time to go get it. We had it on layaway. And I'll never forget when Kenny demoed that. It was a Crown. And back then, Crown made the best amplifiers. They were high-end professional amplifiers. And they just happened because boomboxes were really popular. I didn't want a Panasonic because everybody had a Panasonic. I didn't want that because everybody had one. I wanted something different. And Kenny was asking me questions. He was a great stereo guy, and he asked me questions. Do you record? He said, "Do you record stuff from the radio a lot?" And I'm like, "Yeah, King Biscuit Flower Hour, and stuff like that." And so
American Top 40.
Yeah.
I'm Casey Kasem.
But he said this thing has he says it has a playback head and a record head, and he said what you're listening to when you're recording is what the recording sounds like. He said, so you'll know if something happens. And I'm like, whoa, I'm like, okay, so
Wow.
I got it. And he had left his demo cassette that he had. He left it in there, and I think I still have it. I think it's in my old desk at our rental house. But had that boombox, and I still have some cassettes where I recorded Judas Priest, Screaming for Vengeance tour. I recorded it one evening when they played it, like a Friday night. Usually at midnight, the radio station would play.
You
a
got
concert
another
series.
thing coming.
Yeah. And I saw that concert.
Oh,
in
did
Knoxville.
you?
Oh yeah. I'm gay for Rob Halford. I love Rob Halford. But this is what's funny. Okay, this guy Kenny Thuggett, when
The Yoda
yeah,
of
when
audio.
when I had my stereo shop for maybe 7-8 years, there was a chain of car stereo places around North Carolina that were high end, and they were there was one in Greensboro, High Point, Raleigh, Durham, Cary, all over the place. It was called Stereo Sound, and then I think they changed their name. It was a woman that owned them, Ann Shackman, I think was her name. But they were closing the store in Cary down, and they had their display equipment for their car audio stuff. And I heard through the grapevine that they were wanting to sell it. So it's like, okay. So we tripped down. We went and got a
You're
cube
still in
truck.
high school? Or you got your stereo?
No, I had the stereo shop.
Oh,
then.
okay.
So I get the guys.
So you're like, mount up, boys.
Yeah,
We're going to the mother load.
We got the cube truck and went in there, and I'm looking at the display, and the guy comes in to show me and tell me how much they want. It's Kenny Thuggett.
No
I am not
way.
shooting. And I was
Did
like,
he remember you?
Yeah. I said, you sold me my Crown boombox in Knoxville, Tennessee. He's like, I did, didn't I? And I was like, yeah. And so it was so damn cool. And
Did everything go to slow motion and the romantic music come up?
Cool as shit. Well, now Kenny, when he left there, he became he was a salesman for one of the vendors that I deal with. So I can still call him right now. Hey Kenny, how you doing? Unless he's retired.
Did you buy a lot of shit there?
I bought that display, yeah.
Oh, you did? You bought the old
$1,500,
display?
yeah. And it lasted forever. I think it's still, no, it's not. I ended up trashing it. It went through where we pulled the components out, rebuilt everything. And every time we would redecorate.
You got me wanting to go to Las Vegas, get into my storage, and get all of my Yamaha shit out of storage and hook it up, bro.
I'm gonna get mine over here.
I'm gonna have to do it now. Holy shit!
That Yamaha's good stuff.
Yeah, I got all of it. I got the amp, the preamp,
So I didn't want a preamp because, well, at the time I didn't have room because we were in the barracks, so I had to just have an integrated amp. No, actually I didn't, because I didn't care about having a tuner because we were in Europe. I didn't give a shit about listening to their channels.
because the tuner had the radio on it.
Yeah. So it was just an amp. But it was a preamp, had a preamp.
Had a preamp in it.
And so I could hook the CD player.
Were they called M with a number? Was it?
It was a KDA 1020. So it's amp whatever.
I think I had the. I've got to look it up now. Sorry, go ahead.
And then my turntable was the one where it's
Techniques?
straight arm. No, it was
Yamaha?
Yamaha. It was the straight arm, and it tracked this way.
Oh, it was a straight arm, not the
Yeah.
curved arm.
You could touch it, and it would be like it would go everywhere if you tapped it. It was so light and easy.
Do you remember though? Someone started coming out with exposed tubes.
Yeah. Macintosh had it.
Macintosh.
Yeah, they had some stout. There's Macintosh. They're still.
Well, that's what's in the fucking Wagoneer. Nice job.
Man.
That's what's in the Wagoneer now.
All over Toledo.
When I rented that Wagoneer in Maine, Macintosh stereo. I don't know what's in the Range Rover. Do you recall?
I gotta tell you though, it's not real Macintosh. It's probably some fancy JBL shit.
No, it's called Macintosh by somebody else.
Macintosh by like Barry Levinson or something.
Russell Crowe or something, I think. If there was internet here, folks, we'd be able to pull up a little more information, but Jim, being the cheap bastard that he is.
We don't need no stinking internet.
What do you think of the smoke?
I agree with you that compared to the last one, this one's a little mellow.
Macintosh stereo system in Grand Wagoneer. The Macintosh MX 1375, blah, blah, blah. Available in the Grand Wagoneer. Macintosh, a high-end audio hardware company, offers up to 23 speakers in its first vehicle-based stereo system.
I say in name only.
The MX 1375 X-Winged Fighter reference entertainment system comes with 23 speakers, a 1375 watt amplifier, and adaptive 3D surround sound processing.
How much power?
1375 watts.
When lightning strikes it, that's some bullshit. You know how big that amplifier would have to be?
Like,
Even today's standards, you can get an amplifier and they're like, oh, it puts out 3,000 watts. And it's like this big.
no, that's impossible, and you know that's impossible. What are they saying?
I'm saying that it probably has 500 continuous, 1,300 watt max through 1 kilohertz tone for 2 seconds. And that's when they measured it. They said, how high did it go? And they went 1375. They're like, okay, we got it. We're at 1375.
This is it, Jim.
What you got?
This is my amp right here. Oh, this is it all. This is all of it right here. Let me go back.
Is somebody selling it out of your storage
Someone's
building?
broken into my fucking storage.
They're selling that shit off Facebook.
It's right there on the left.
The M80. I remember those.
All those. Those are my three components.
The C80 and the preamp. Oh, yeah. Hell yeah.
They only want $2,000 for it now, and it's fucking 84, 94, 204. It's 40 fucking years old, and they still want it's where they want $2,000 for it.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Gosh, I remember those red lights, man.
Yeah. Did you get I got the YGE 400, something like that. It's the graphic equalizer.
I think so. I'm going to bring this out. I'm going to bring this. Yeah, I'm going to bring this out here. I'm going to bring it out. We're going to hook it up right here.
Okay.
Bring my Coral speakers.
Let's do it.
Which I think are JBLs maybe.
Corel?
Coral. This is it. This is them right here
Cable.
in the middle.
Coral. Yeah.
BX 1201s.
You bring them bad boys here.
$814 for the two of them. I'd get in from flying, get to my BOQ, you know, I just put on music and I just sit there
Yeah.
decompressing. Back then, you could smoke in the military. I'd be in my bachelor officer's quarters with the door open, cigar smoke billowing out of the door. Were you in the military when they stopped smoking?
No, they smoked.
You couldn't smoke?
Yeah, they smoked.
We used to smoke in the airplane.
Because I used to have to police their fucking cigarette butts.
We used to smoke in the airplane, and I was back at Castle, I think, upgrading. And all of a sudden, no more smoking when you flew. These old fellas, these Vietnam guys, fuck that, they said. They didn't give a rat's ass. When I got back to Guam, all of there was 30 lieutenant colonels that had flown in Vietnam, linebacker guys. I mean, these guys had 15,000 hours in the B-52. You know, they've been to Hanoi 100 times. You know, Major Zimmerman, he was the chief flight instructing guy. He was in charge of CFIC, which is the flight instructors, and he was a major, and he'd probably been a major for 20 years because he
smoked
and drank. Well, he was, how it was back then, man.
Yeah.
We went to the officers club on fucking Friday nights, and if you weren't drunk by 6 o'clock, I mean, it was wild back in those days, especially in Guam, which was 1,000,000 miles from any real adult supervision. And Major Zimmerman, he finally made lieutenant colonel because he wouldn't get out. But those guys, there's nothing they couldn't do in that airplane.
Have you ever seen The Great Santini?
Of course.
Damn, that's a good movie.
It's a sad movie.
It is sad. That's the first movie that I realized what a good actor Robert Duvall was.
My dad was just like him, but not mean. I mean, my dad was exactly like him, but he wasn't mean.
It was sad.
Couldn't relate to his family. You know, I mean, my dad wasn't made to have kids, but he just didn't, because he didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Hillbilly from North Georgia, didn't have shoes until he was like 9 or 10. You know, my uncle and my dad's family were the most racist people on the planet. My uncle was a dragon in the Klan, but it's proof that you can't use the excuse, that's how I was raised, because my father was not racist at all. He joined the Merchant Marines at 15 illegally, sailed around the world 2 or 3 times, and then got in the Army Air Corps in 46 and became a Chief Master Sergeant. Back when there weren't that many Chief Master Sergeants.
In the Air Force?
Yeah.
I think my dad was that same rank.
Is that right? E9?
He was in Korea.
He would have been an E9.
I have to look, but I think he was in security services or something like that.
Well, back then it was security police.
Yeah.
In the beginning, when my dad first got in 46, it was the Air Force didn't come around to 47, so it was Army Air Corps for a year. Then 47, they created the Air Force, and my dad was in Air Police. It was Air Police for like 10 years or so. Then it became Security Police, and then in 90, it becomes Security Forces. Somewhere in that time, my dates are off because I don't know that.
Yeah.
They became Security Forces.
It's weird because I never paid any attention to that stuff when I was little. I know my dad, he was a certain way.
Because he didn't talk about it then.
No, he was a POW in Korea, but I didn't even know about that. I just know, like, when I was in Germany, we had been out in the field for a couple of weeks, and I was starving. We're going back to the I think we were in Grafenwehr.
You could have gone to the academy.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because he was a POW. That frightens me thinking about you at a military.
That would have been nice to know. But he, we're in Graf, and Graf had permanent structures for the barracks, so we wouldn't tear up the ground, putting tents up and shit. So I'm on the way back from the field, walking through this. I walk through the KP trailer, and I'm starving, and I'm like, ain't nobody in there, and I'm walking through. They have pots on the stoves cooking and stuff, and I'm looking down, I'm like, I don't know what that is, but I'm gonna eat it. So I put my hand down there and grabbed a handful. It was rice, and I started eating. I'm like, this is good. I've never had rice before, never. So
Because that's all your dad ate
probably
in POW camp, and he ate it.
And we got back to the barracks, and I called my mom, and I was like, why did we ever have rice? And she said, your daddy was a POW in Korea. We never would eat rice. That's why. And so I found out, okay, so
Wow.
right then, that moment, all this stuff that flashes through that the little conversations I had with my dad when I was little makes sense. When I'm in Germany talking to my mom on the phone, I'm like, okay. Because there was one time when, when you were little, you used to catch bees with
The
jars.
jars.
And you'd poke holes in the top, but you'd keep that bee, you just keep it. And I remember I had one. I'd just caught a bumblebee. And I was sitting in the garage, and I had sitting there, the garage door's open. And my dad comes out, and he comes over there, and he sits with me. And he said, do you think that bee's family misses him? Like maybe they're wondering where he's at and they can't find him? And I was like, yeah, I guess. He said, you think you ought to let him out of there? I was like, yeah, I guess. So I opened up the jar and let the bee fly away. Never. And then when my mom told me he was a POW, I was like, I understand now. I understand that.
Wow.
But see, I don't. My dad was a drunk. He cheated on my mom, and he was never around. I remember doing stuff with him, but at the time you're doing it, you're not thinking, I better cherish this memory because he's not going to be around. So he died when I was 12, and you don't think about that stuff, because I'll never forget when my mom told me that he had died. Her friends came over. My mom asked her friends to come over, and she told me, and I just I said, oh well, because he was never there.
Yeah, my dad wasn't a bad dad. He just didn't know how to be a dad. The military was his life.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody in the military, his troops, freaking loved him. I mean, because he was there for them. And
Yeah.
and when he was home, if I had was supposed to build a terrarium in a 5-gallon jar, with plants and shit in it, in his car, 9 o'clock at night, going out into the woods to get some moss, and because he knew what he was. He knew what he was. When there was something to do, he knew how to do it.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he ever said he loved me. And I was able to deal with that because
Yeah.
I can deal with my emotions, but my little brother, they fought all the time. I mean, not bad shit, but just
Yeah.
all of my patience and everything. My little brother had none of it, and it's back then they just didn't know how to be fathers. They were not equipped.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure that he had demons because he was always drunk. And I know one of the few times he was the safety director for Watkins Motor Lines, which they were in Florida.
Trucking company.
It was either a Ranchero or an El Camino, I can't remember, but it had a phone in it. And I'll never forget. And this was like, he would get, and it was a real phone, had the little shoulder hook on
The
it.
bag,
the
the
receiver.
bag phone.
And he would be, driving and like, hey, KH809, I need you to get me a landline to such and such. And whenever there was a accident that involved a Watkins truck, he would have to go. And I went with him one time. And we went, and then on the way back, of course, it's going down and coming back. And I don't know when it was. I just know we drove forever. And it got dark. He stops at a Quickie Mart, gets a Budweiser, one of those 64-ounce bottles or whatever, brown bag in it, sits it down. You know, he's just chugging away while he's driving. And I got so scared I was in the floorboard because I was sitting there in the passenger seat. You know, we don't wear seatbelts or nothing like that back then. And
This was the seat belt. When your mom
yeah,
put her arm across,
that's right.
slammed on the brakes and put her arm across, that was your seat belt.
So I just remember him staying in the middle of the road where the line was in the middle of the car. And I lost it. I just got down to the floorboard and just curled down and went to sleep.
Down there with all that carbon monoxide.
Yeah.
Because you know those cars were leaking back then. Remember that? I used to stand next to my mother as she drove in the seat, you know, when I was little.
Yeah. What about riding in the back of a pickup truck?
That's all I ever did at my grandfather's.
Oh, yeah.
Going across those country roads at 50 miles an hour.
Yeah,
out on the
let's
free-
do it again. Turn around, go back.
Yeah, no, it's just crazy.
We've been watching like old 48 Hours episodes and stuff.
Oh
like
my God,
the
bro.
murders and kidnappings
Yeah.
and stuff. You know, shit like that went on back then.
But there was no news.
There was no news, so we didn't know.
There
about
was
it.
no news to tell you about it.
And there was you might remember the story. It was this couple in Georgia who decided they wanted to adopt. They couldn't have kids of their own, so they decided to adopt. They went to Russia in 1995. They went to Russia. They adopted a 6-year-old girl, and I think it was a 1 or 2-year-old boy. They came back home, and they found like the girl was like real distant, and they claimed that she tried to kill her little brother, hang him over the balcony and stuff, and she tried to kill the dog that they had and all this stuff. So they ended up, I think they tried to keep her, and it got so bad where they didn't trust leaving her with her little brother. So they took her back to Russia.
Right.
Took her back. When they took her back, they told her it was only going to be for a couple months. Well, they didn't go back.
Right.
They just left her. So the reporter from 48 Hours, they did a thing. He said, "I've always wondered
What happened?
what happened to that little girl. She lives in North Carolina, got like 6 kids, married, happy, all that." And that reporter was asking her, she said, "I never tried to kill my little brother. She said, I was trying to grab him because she yelled at me and told me to get him. So I got him." She said, "He was almost as big as I was. You know how hard it is for a little kid to get hold of another little kid." And she said, "The next thing I know, they're screaming at me saying, 'You were trying to kill him. You were trying to kill him.'" She said they just kept screaming that. And then I finally just said, "Okay." But it was so cool.
Well, one thing about back then, though, neighbors paid attention to what was going on.
Yeah.
If there was a bunch of kids, I mean, sure, there was no media, like I said, and those crimes happened. But if you were in a neighborhood, that was part of your extended family.
Yeah.
If some stranger pulled up in a car, your neighbors were out there going, "Who are you and what are you doing?"
Yeah.
You know, in those days. And now sometimes neighbors don't even know who lives next door to them.
Yeah.
If you're a mild cigar smoker,
This is good.
this
is mild
this
for
is
me.
great. If you're a mild cigar smoker, this is a great smoke. Totally consistent. You will love this cigar. It's the, what's it called again?
The Magician,
El Mago
Miami.
Triumphante. It's a great mild cigar.
Yeah.
I'm glad that it's over. But you can't just smoke what you like. You got to be able to, even though we're pretending this is, as most people are saying, they're just pretending this is a cigar show so they can bullshit. But there's nothing wrong with bullshit.
That's right.
Our mental health is great.
That's right. Well,
you know what I mean.
we'll put the scan tool on that Range Rover. See.
Hey, I figure it's been 4 days and I haven't spent $1,000 yet. So, I'm
I was even looking for others. I was like, that thing was nice for $5,000. That was a nice damn ride.
It really is.
And
I'll get a Salvation Coffee wrap on it. Now, are you selling on the internet at all?
Yeah.
You are?
Yeah. We have subscriptions and everything.
We got to get you in with Southwest Airlines or somebody.
Why?
So you can sell tons of coffee.
I don't want to sell tons of coffee. That means I got to roast tons of coffee.
Oh, that would mean you would be working. Instead of here effing
I could
off
just
with me.
sell out like Black Rifle and it'd be Folgers. I would not have started my company
if it hadn't been for them.
Hadn't been for them. And just watching their stories when they would talk about when they were starting, and the shirts, the article, was it Article 15 shirts?
That was Matt and
Vince's,
I think, and JD's company way back in the day.
I had an Article 15 shirt back then. And then of course, the Ranger Up. But and when I first met Nick, this was right before I met you.
Worst day of my life.
Nick, he had sent an email to me about the range filming John Ruge, the weapon snatcher.
Yeah, we went out there.
And
that's when you met Nick?
That's the first time I'd ever met Nick.
That was right after Seattle. And John flew out here.
Yeah.
And we took him out there and we filmed him. And Nick.
That's an amazing dude. I mean, there's no telling how many lives he saved that day.
Walked up and took that AR, right? The kid had an AR, had gotten an AR out of that cop car, right?
I think he got 4.
4.
He had confiscated 4 because he ended up at the end when it was all over. I think he had 4 slung and had all their bolts in his
that's right.
cargo
that's
pocket.
Right. That's right.
If you see his post now, he's got a Salvation hat or one of our Salvation patches on his shirt.
Matt's been hanging out with him a little bit, right? Every now and then?
They were, yeah. I met Nick, and I got a little coffee shop. And he was like, oh, okay. He said, did you print that shirt? I said, I have them printed. I said, I designed it, and I have it printed. And he was like, I have Ranger. I said, I know who you are. So,
it's so funny. Nick, I call Nick the reluctant celebrity. Because people, it doesn't matter where we go. Any event that's got more than 1,000 people, someone's going to walk in and go, oh, you're Nick from the internet.
You were an asshole. It was all about getting that shot, though, so I understand. But you had the Iraqi. You had a hat on.
Cigar and Gun Club of Afghanistan.
Yes. Yeah. And I had my buddy Garrett. Garrett Carnes was there. And because I'd asked Nick, I said, can I, because he said, come down and watch this film. We're going to be filming. Come on down. And I was like, okay, we'll come down. And Garrett came. And because Garrett's a Marine, I figured he'd appreciate John Ruge. But Garrett and I are sitting up on the bank watching Ruge go through his damn maneuvers. And it's like, wow, he is skilled.
I am pretty focused when I'm filming.
I know you are.
I want to get it done and over with so we can fuck off, I don't have any delusions of grandeur about it being brain surgery or anything. I just want to shoot.
I'm over there talking to Garrett, and you're like, quiet on set.
And then we became best friends.
I was like, I said, damn, Garrett, you need to shut your mouth.
You need to show Salvation Angel. before, during, or after one of our episodes.
The Coffee Angel?
Yes, you need to load them into the show.
Oh,
Yes, you do. All three of those spots.
okay. We'll figure out something.
Folks, I'm telling you right now, I'm gonna make sure he does that, because these are the commercials that propelled Jim and made his business grow exponentially. And he's an outstanding actor.
Yeah, he is.
The one with you and Perry. I mean, if you want to see Jim in angel wings and a halo, please send a comment. We had so much fun that day, didn't we?
Yeah, looking for places to go film. Oh,
That's-
let's just go over there.
That's the first time I'd really hung out with you, right?
Yeah.
We had so much fun that day.
I'm not interested in ruling the coffee world. I keep the bills paid, and that's good enough. As long as I can employ a bunch of people
And pay for cigars.
and pay for cigars, yes.
Thanks for joining us. Another episode of
The
Smoked
Smoked
Debrief.
Debrief.